Hi, welcome to Bathtub. When you see this illustrious Christmas hat and you hear this, and then Lucky decides it's time for her to get up into my lap without biting me. Oh, such a good dog. And you know it's time for the Bathtacular Christmas edition. You know what it is. There's no secret from you guys. You've been following this show for decades, ever since it was a USO show and its period as a small radio show in Fresno, California, 5,000 watt radio station in Fresno, California. I'm trying to remember the long, illustrious career of the show. Then you know it's time for that. Every year we do this. Ever since we lost a bet to Bob Hope and Jack Benny and Arthur Godfrey, blah blah blah. Anyway, we're ready. This is the old masturbator. This is the old masturbator's dog, who's not biting anyone today, and we're doing our Bathtabulous Christmas series. This is also, besides being the masturbator right now, I think I'm also the errant masturbator, because I haven't really been doing these. I've kind of fallen off the bathtub, or fallen off the edge of the bathtub or something. I haven't been doing my things. I got lots of books to talk about. You're a very good dog, not biting me, and I'm going to do them all very quick. Probably mix them all up. Christmas is a good time for mountain spring water. Save the boozing for later. The Raphael glow is coming through here. We've got our special shirt from the Ferbers, the International Bathing Society, which says on the back, I forget, something like read unwisely or whatever. Beautiful shirt. Love this shirt. We got Christmas last year, and it supplanted the old sweater I got from Arthur Godfrey, which many of you will remember. This hat has a funny story. I told you last episode we were going to bring the Pismo Beach prop department back into the fold. We were giving them another chance. They were crying for attention. They live with their mother in Pismo Beach. They have nothing to do except prepare things for the show. So I told them they could decorate this whole place completely crazy, and all they came up with was this stupid elf hat. It's supposed to be elf legs sticking out. That's it. So we sacked them again, sent them back to Pismo Beach at Christmas. That's the way we are here. Anyway, so today, this means it's Christmas. We can take it off now that you know it's Christmas. We're going to talk about all these different books, and the first episode is going to be called Pamela or Shamela, Which Should You Take into the Bathtub? And you'll understand what that means in a few minutes. We're old academics and masturbators, and sometimes the academic and the masturbating kind of intersect. And I have learned over the years that a lot of the books you think you're going to dread reading in college turn out to be a hell of a lot of fun. And the one I enjoyed when I was about 22 or 23 or 24, when I took Bob Mannix's History of the Novel course at UCLA. Terrible English department. I hated that place, but I had a couple great teachers. Bob Mannix was one of them. He got us to read Pamela by Samuel Richardson, which many people call the first novel. The very first novel. It was written by Samuel Richardson. Originally, I believe he was a printer, and he was asked to write a series of letters to show young women how to write proper correspondence, and to make clear how virtuous they are and what good people they are, and by writing these letters, because letter writing was a big thing at the time. And he was supposed to write a book about what kind of letters you should write if you're a good young lady. And he wrote this totally sick, completely crazy, twisted, near pornographic nonsense, craziness that's almost unputdownable, called Pamela. And the premise of Pamela, for those of you who haven't read it, and you should read it, is that there's this young woman who works for a guy named Squire B. Squire B, he's like a well-off guy, and she's been with the family for years, and she's the maid in waiting for Squire B's mother, I think. And she's a beautiful 16-year-old, luscious, gorgeous girl, perfectly good, very good, perfect. Everyone loves her because she's such a wonderful person. And we know she's a really wonderful, lovable person because she tells us constantly in the letters about how everyone tells her how wonderful she is. Oh, pshaw, but I'm not so wonderful. But someone else told me how wonderful. She writes all these letters. And in the early cross of the book, the woman she works for dies, and Squire B becomes her master. And he is after her. I mean, he is after her in every possible. He wants to get this girl into bed. as fast as he possibly can. He's obsessed with her. And he's constantly telling her how much he wants her to love him and to adore him. And she keeps saying, no, no, I'm too virtuous. The title of the book is not just Pamela, it's also Virtue Rewarded. So it's the reward of this woman. And as she says no to Squire B, over the course of the first 100 pages or so, he gets more and more obsessed with her until he tears her away from the good servants and basically kidnaps her and throws her into a house somewhere in one of his country houses with I get them confused. There's a Mrs. Jukes, who's the evil one, and Mrs. Jervis, who's the good servant. And she takes her shoes away. He takes Pamela's shoes away. He puts her in this house, and he's constantly trying to get her into bed. And he tells her, professes his love and how much he loves her and how much he'll take care of her, and he'll find her a husband, but she has to sleep with him, basically. And at some points, he's actually hiding in the closet. He often hides in the closet while she's going to bed. Another time, he dresses up like the maid. I mean, it's like a Martin Scorsese film. He dresses up like the maid so that he can be in the room while she's undressing. It gets crazier and crazier until finally he realizes he cannot have Pamela. About halfway through the book, and she runs away. She almost kills herself because she'd rather die than have sex with this guy because she's too virtuous. So she runs off. She almost dies. And eventually he says, okay, you'll have your way. I'm going to marry you. I love you so much. That's halfway through the book. Anyway, the first half of the book is unputdownable. It's fascinating. It's absorbing. I'll just give you a really quick taste of the craziness that's going on here. So basically he's trying to trick her and convince her to go to bed with him. At one point, he says he put on a stern and majestic air, and he can look very majestic when he pleases. It is there's this little he looked very stern, and he was actually quite good looking. She's constantly doing that through the first half. She says he looks evil, and yet there's something attractive and compelling about him. And so she's constantly showing that she's ready to fall in love with this psychopath. And he says he can look very majestic when he pleases. Well, perverse Pamela, ungrateful runaway, said he, for my first salutation, you do well, don't you, to give me all this trouble and vexation. I could not speak, but throwing myself on the floor, so he's telling her how evil she is. She throws herself on the floor. Hid my face, was ready to die with grief and apprehension. He said, well, may you hide your face. Well, may you be ashamed to see me, because you won't sleep with him. Vile, forward one as you are, I sobbed and wept, but could not speak. There's this huge psychodrama. It goes on for 250 pages. And then finally he says, okay, let's get married. And she goes, you're the most wonderful man. From that point on, the book kind of goes to hell. And I'm going to confess this. It kind of goes to hell. After she gives in, I remember the first time I read it, I read the whole book because I had to for class, and I found the second half. I kept waiting for the evil Squire B to come back because he was so much more interesting than Mr. Good Guy. But he never comes back. And the entire second half of the book is the two of them telling each other how much they love. This guy's tried to rape her, and he's dressed up like a woman and hidden and watched her from the closet while she was getting undressed. This is basically a Desaadian sort of character, but who's an idiot. You know, he's not quite as clever as some of the Desaad monsters. Anyway, here's a little taste of the second half of the book, which I was trying to reread it again. So I really enjoyed rereading the first half. I started going through the second half, and I got exhausted. And I actually did not finish the second half. Anyway, here's a taste of the whole last 200 pages. He says, speak, dear Pamela. And if I have power but speaking to purchase one smile, he's saying to her, I'll do anything, just a little smile from your pretty little face. He says, it shall be done. And she says, I cannot, sir. I have any fears, any doubts, but that I shall never be able to deserve all your goodness. I have no hopes but that my future conduct may be agreeable to you, and my determined duty well accepted. Nor have I any request to make but that you will forgive all my imperfections, and among the rest, this foolish weakness that makes me seem to you, after all the generous things that have passed, to want this further condescension and these kind assurances. Okay. Basically, he takes her out into society. He introduces her to all the noble people in the town, and they all say, "Oh, you're not marrying the cleaning lady, are you?" And he says, "Yes, I am." And they meet her, and they go, "She's so wonderful. She's just, oh, you must marry her. She is so beautiful." Anyway, the second half of the book is a complete fantasy, psychotic fantasy. And anyway, I really recommend it for fun. I've always wanted to read, this is a kind of a more, I think this is supposed to be a much more solid book. I've never been able to get time to read Clarissa. It's possibly one of the longest novels ever written. It's a similar setup where you have a beautiful, virtuous young woman who's being pursued by this evil scoundrel who's also very manipulative. And I've gotten a couple hundred pages. I still want to read it. I was thinking of reading it this Christmas. I don't know if I'm going to get to it. But Clarissa is kind of supposed to be his best book. What I did do, after I got really fed up with Pamela, is I went and read, for the first time, Henry Fielding's Shamala. Shamala, which is about a 50-page, 40-page short novel that he wrote in response to the idiocy of Pamela. Henry Fielding, if you only read Shamala, becomes one of the funniest guys. He's just a hilarious guy. You can't help loving Fielding because he totally takes his book apart. He calls it Shamala, of course, and it's her letters. It's the real letters of what was really going on. And he calls the guy, it's not Squire B anymore, it's Squire Booby. So Squire Booby is lusting after the chambermaid, who's already having sex like crazy with the local parson, who's a total sleazy guy. And she's having a great time with him, and she's pretending to be virtuous with Squire Booby just so she can basically get his money, which both Pamela and Shamala end up doing. There is one, I'll just read you the opening, the title page of it. I have the Penguin edition, I'm afraid, on Kindle. But it is the Penguin edition, so it's pretty good. This is the title page, and it says, "An apology for the life of Mrs. Shamela Andrews, in which the many notorious falsehoods and misrepresentations of a book called Pamela are exposed and refuted." I won't read much more than that, except to say this is not considered one of Fielding's major novels, but it's hilarious. And it's only 40 pages. Both books are fun to take in the bathtub. The first half of Pamela, you just can't put it down. I remember my teacher saying that from Pamela, two types of books came out of English literature. One was that sentimental novel, the Emma, what's her name, the Jane Austen style of books about people meeting and disliking each other and then getting married, and then pornography. And you can sort of see the two different streams of the novel coming out of that one book. He starts talking about how it starts off as a set of letters that are exposed, that are the real letters of this woman. And I'm trying to find one, if I could find. It's talking about how she's waiting at home, and when she waits home for Squire B to come home, she pretends to be shocked and she pretends to be offended, but basically she's looking out, getting the parson to help her manipulate this guy. There's Mrs. Jervis, and Mrs. Jervis is not Mrs. Perfect cleaning lady. She's actually trying to help Pamela run this scam, or Shamala run this scam. I can't find a passage I wanted to read, but it's 50 pages. And after I finished it, it's published with Joseph Andrews. Joseph Andrews is the brother of Pamela in the book, who's hardly a character in it. But he writes a story about Joseph Andrews, which is sort of the model. It's sort of the model which he will use to write Tom Jones. It's about a young man wandering around. He's very beautiful, and all the upper crust women want to jump in bed with him, and even the cleaning ladies want to jump in bed with him. And he's too virtuous to go around. But around him, everyone is just like, they're wild cattle, just trying to have sex and steal money and get drunk. And it's a very, Joseph Andrews, I'm almost finished with it. We'll give a longer report in the future, is hilarious. And it makes me want to read, instead of reading this, which I do want to read someday, I really do want to read Tom Jones maybe this Christmas. Okay, there's our totally, completely useless episode. Who do we want to take in the bathtub? Shamala or Pamela? We're going to take them both. They both belong in the bathtub. Stay safe.